You can hear me okay? Great. Why are you sitting at the back? You might as well sit down here. Come on. Don't be shy. Anyway, so my name is Iain Patterson, CDO for UK Cloud. A little bit about UK Cloud and UK Cloud Health. It was born out of need for the public sector to move to cloud. We saw in the central government environment that there was a cloud-first policy, and recently we've now seen the final signing off of a cloud policy for health as well. So we created a dedicated platform for healthcare, the same as we created one for, if you like, the public sector generally. So I'll talk a little bit about that later on. So this presentation is really about the how to get to cloud. I'm guessing you guys, are you technical guys or are you? You're not, okay, you're not. All technical in the audience today. The reality is a lot of organisations sort of want to do this, they're told or feel they have to do this, and they don't know how to do it. You know, you've got the legacy stuff there, the day-to-day operation is the thing they really need to keep running. Change is always fraught with risk, they're very risk adverse, and actually, they don't really understand. There's a lot of questions that are usually asked. They do it through business cases. Usually it's quite difficult to get the business case formatted for something moving to cloud. You're going to do it in an agile way. That's kind of alien to the business case formats as well to some degree. And also, the question is it a tech thing? Sometimes, from my experience, it's been seen as more of a technology thing, more than an operational and organizational thing. And there's no chance just doing something that says take something to cloud as technology if you're not going to focus what the impacts are going to be to your fiscal aspects, i.e. you're now moving from CapEx to revenue spend, or looking at your operational aspects of who you've got, what skills have you got, how you're going to use it. So it's fraught with a lot of questions and a lot of upfront work you have to think about before you do it. And a lot of large organisations I've worked with in the past don't necessarily understand what they've currently got in their IT estate. So some of the things where it's outsourced is quite a difficult thing to find out what it is, and when it's insourced, it's all in the heads of the people that are actually running it rather than the people that are, say, leading it. So that's one I worked on way back when in DVLA when I took them to cloud. And it's a very simplified version of a very complex architecture. But you can see in that actually across here, there's actually over 75 interfaces they individually built. At the time, so it wasn't thinking about APIs. And this side over here was all about these are the on-premise systems, and then when they started doing things about taking things online, they built separate systems for the online aspect as well. The idea was that was going to supersede that, never did, so ended up spending lots of money. So you've got this horrible, gnarly legacy sort of situation that has grown organically over the years, is particularly in healthcare as well. So I think you all know the Pareto rule, and if you look at the fact with what's happened to cloud, most people are moving or creating new things and putting them in cloud, and not really moving the old estates and dismantling the legacy in the same way. So they're plugging cloud aspects, public access things in to legacy systems and legacy databases. So, the fact is, you've got these things which they're, is for, I don't know if you've got actual, I want to speak to you directly, that you've actually got, have you got system integrators that maintain your systems, or is it in-house? Your systems integrator, right? So some of the contracts you'll have will be managed service contracts. It's all based on the outputs. A lot of it's based off the fact that you've got contracts that were designed to be output-based, and therefore outsourcing a lot of the, if you like, intelligence and architecture drivers, if you like, of the organisation. And if you've got one that's in-house, then it's a lot easier. But sometimes you can see that, just say there, you've got digital is created on top of legacy. It has to go back to data. And you recognise that even that's pretty old, but that's what typical internet architecture. And what I see is that a lot of organisations have literally taken the application and moved that to the cloud and left the rest of it behind. Nobody's fully taken the enterprise aspects into cloud at this point in time. And sometimes they interface that with different policy solutions as well, applying policies into that, so to make sure that the right people access it in the right way and it's secure, etc. So what we're not seeing is as a massive leap to everything going to cloud, and it's very, very rare. So one of the things that I also noticed, we've got literally hundreds of healthcare aspects. So people like DocMan, I think we've got 200 and odd partners linked to us. So we've got hundreds of workloads that are coming to us with their data, GPs as well. So there's an awful lot of data that's massing with us. And the diagram really, when you look at it, so you're probably familiar with the terms around data gravity, which means actually the more you've actually created data, the bigger the mass, the more the traction. So the more data that people are amassing, the more applications want to feed to that data. So that's something to be aware of, and it's certainly to be aware of when you're looking at where is that data residing, whose data is residing where, how you want to access it, and moving things close to the edge as far as your technology is concerned to access it. So that when you start to look at that and see how that's massing, and we're looking at that with, well, how's that going to work with the fact that more applications are going to be talking to the same data that resides with us, or sharing out, and companies sharing that data. So that's a lot of healthcare data that we actually have in our cloud environment. And as you know, sort of data storage in cloud is relatively cheap compared to data processing. So, you know, what we try to do is work with not just the end users, but work with the suppliers as well around how to get the best from cloud, and also what the, if I call it cloud economics, there's a term of actually what are you going to end up spending going down the cloud route in comparison to what you would have spent with on-premise. And not all applications are actually suited to cloud in the same way. So it's a very careful balance, but we like to work both with the end user and with our supply chain as well to feed those in. So everybody's probably sort of aware that when you start looking at this, that you come from a very inflexible environment and you want to get to the nirvana of public digital services. But actually there's an awful lot in the way of doing that. And you see that we've had terms around private cloud. The diagram I'll show you in a minute shows that we're actually sitting on top of all your secure networks, which are approved in healthcare, as well as all the PSN ones as well for government. So we sit right on top of those. So it's easy to access. So if there is anything that is very secure, we can manage those workloads as well. So since I joined the organisation last year, one of the things I was clear on looking at is we don't have, you know, the environments we have are pretty well heterogeneous. They're made up of lots and lots of different products, lots of different technologies that work in different ways. As I said before, you're not going to suddenly go and rebuild your whole environments. Nobody's going to let you go and rebuild your whole environments whilst the other ones exist, and then transfer your data across and work in new landscape. You're going to have to work with some of those legacy solutions. So what we looked at is what we termed, and working closely with Microsoft, the multi-cloud strategy. That means inside our environment, we can work with all those technologies you see there, and there's probably others which obviously you can see there's an AWS piece up there, but not in that circle, in Google. But we will be talking to them as well about how we can actually manage the workloads in that space. So working across cloud to manage the right workloads in the right way. So if you want to move Oracle RAC to Amazon, you're going to find that extremely difficult, I would say impossible to do. And do you want to rebuild everything in Postgres to go and do that? No, you wouldn't. And you probably wouldn't be able to afford to do all that. But you can see here that we've got the Crown Campus, as in Crown Hosting, which actually is not widely used across healthcare, and it's available to be used in there. So you can move your legacy systems into that and reduce the cost and take them out of your own data centers, for example. And Crown Campus is, so Crown Hosting was a commercial contract signed between a company called ARC and the government's joint venture. And it was designed to take out $2 billion of cost in the public sector by moving legacy systems into a singular environment that was cheaper. And the idea was that you could then dismantle that over time and migrate away from legacy systems. It exists. It's a framework that's there that healthcare companies are not using. And it's open to health, and it's open to local authorities. But it's not widely publicised. So we're actually based inside that citadel. So we're a cloud environment in that, and therefore we can burst out all the POPs are there for Amazon, Oracle, etc. So we've now partnered with Azure. We launched that late last year. So we're building a secure version of Azure Stack, which is dedicated for healthcare and for the public sector. So it has features that the standard Azure doesn't have. and we manage all that for you. So that's actually what we're doing at the moment. So the key thing is that we are linked across all the the secure networks you have on the right-hand side there. We're close to that. We're right close to where the legacy systems reside as well, if you wanted to move into that. So that can reduce your cost. And what we do as an organisation, we don't just sit there and say we're just providing cloud. What we will actually do is assist you and help you transition to cloud, and basically also help you if you wanted to move your existing estates into those environments. There's some work I'm doing with Public Health Wales, which will lead to them exploiting it. Some of the people in there now are aware of the scenarios. So that should be quite an exciting project to watch. I think other than that, I think I'm open to questions. One more person sort of joined us at the back on the escape route. You got any questions at all? So, yeah. Yeah. No, no, uh, yeah, I think if you look at what's happened generally, so government said go cloud some time ago. In fact, all through 2013 onwards, it was really pushing the cloud first policy. I think what is clear is when you read through the policy, there's no clear guidance as to what that looks like. So it's sort of written that you can, it's the permission to do it, but it's how to be informed around how to do it. And I think it's generally not well understood what that means, what cloud actually means. So it's not, if you look at it, 70% of estates are going to be SaaS going forward anyway, by their nature. And how how much is cloud actually going to be there? And also, what is the right fit for cloud? Who's looking at that saying that can move to cloud, and not just said before, just taking the application, sticking it on the IaaS, and then basically come back, consume your data. And you've got to be careful because if you look at some of the providers will turn around and charge you for data ingress and egress is their revenue model. And really you extract the real value of cloud by going into the PaaS. Once you go into the PaaS, then you're going to be sort of hooked in a lot more. Then you move to serverless. And that's, people want serverless. You've got functionality as a service sitting in the back end of that. You don't have to think too much about it in your build, which allows you to get your builds out there far quicker. So what that means is, though, that you're going back into some kind of lock-in. And the paradox is when you look at the policies for cloud first, you've also got the other thing that says don't do lock-in. So I think there's a lot more guidance that has to be put out around that. We work very closely with the central government from the other sort of part of the organisation, and we're bringing all those learnings back in. So we're quite happy if you talk to some of our people on the stand, they'll go through what that can do, how we can help, which partners which you can look at to, whether you're on there, I don't know, but which partners we've got on there that can actually assist you with that. So the idea is to handhold people through that process. It's really tricky. And one of the questions I get asked a lot is, how do you put the business case together for cloud? Because people are nervous. They just think that they don't understand what cloud really is. And at the board level, less and less of them really understand what it truly means, although they're probably consuming cloud products day in, day out in their daily lives. But health just seems to be a tricky thing about patient records, for example. But say, we're managing hundreds of thousands of patient records through our cloud solutions safely. They're very, very high secure. We do a lot of high security stuff as well. So, it is a quite safe thing to do. But I think you have to do it with knowledge. Yeah. Yes, yeah, we do. Yeah, of course, yeah, yeah. Well, so on the slide we work very closely with Oracle, and a lot of their products they talk about cloud actually are software as a service. It's that you're consuming their service. So we can actually manage that through our mechanisms as well. I think the interesting thing is when you look at the back office stuff in particular with HR, FICO, that sort of thing, then that's where you really want to apply your software as a service piece. So I think you might want to look at it if you wanted to manage something gnarly like your customer records and things. Would you use a Salesforce or not? I think what's really important is looking at the API aspects of what is the roadmap for APIs, how you can plug into the SaaS products with your own products, or by plugging in other healthcare products into it. So really it's the interconnectivity between your software as a service and your pure cloud, if you like, and your on-site that's really key. And latency is also an issue around that. But once you enter into the SaaS piece, you really only benefit if you stay with their processes on their roadmap. And that's the important thing. You can't start. I mean, I know an organisation, let's say a large retailer, beginning with T, that's decided to go down a SaaS route, but then ask them to customise everything that's practically in it. There's no real benefit of doing that, because as soon as they do the upgrades elsewhere, it's a one-size-fits-all model, I'm afraid. Any other questions from the two of you? Okay, all right.